We're going to go ahead and come back to session and start the next committee, which is Community and Economic Development. That committee is chaired by Councilor Pinky Vargas.
Thank you, Michael. We have one item in front of us today, and I am joined by fellow council members Barker and Murphy, and we are discussing the 2018-2022 Consolidated Planning Process Update and Discussion. The Consolidated Plan is required by HUD. It's a guide to planning of projects and programs funded by the Federal Community Development Block Grant, often referred to as CDBG, and Home Investment Partnership Program. Planning for allocation of current and future housing levy funded projects and programs is integrated into this process, so very vital to us. And we're going to have a presentation by Samia Lutz, our Housing and Services Program Manager, who's managing this program.
Thank you. The Community Participation Plan is in your packet. It starts on page 122. And this is a plan that addresses both the update to the Consolidated Plan and the required assessment of fair housing. And it addresses basically how we're engaging the public in that process. It tries to be an accessible document that's readable to the public at the same time that it must address certain very specific language as required by HUD. The Community Development Advisory Board has been engaged with this since last fall. They saw some early drafts and have provided quite a bit of feedback into this plan. And the plan basically provides the what, why, how, who, and when of the process. So it talks about the tactics that are going to be used throughout this process and have been used from the get-go. So it also, we know that there's a lot of attention to this, and based on the city survey and the outcome demonstrated that homelessness and housing affordability were very significant challenges to our city. So we're really wanting to be very transparent and provide a whole range of options for people to participate in this process. So up on the slide, you can see just a real summary snapshot. This is the only slide I'm going to show you of kind of the whole process for updating the Consolidated Plan as well as where we are. So phase one talks about gathering and incorporating stakeholder feedback, and that's really going to be going on throughout the entire process. And then right now we're into the summer and we're beginning the preliminary analysis and basically updating all of the data that's part of this plan so that we can really identify the gaps, what's missing. And that's kind of the goal of this whole process. So I'm going to highlight two specific tactics that I think you'll be particularly interested in. The tactics start on page 126. And before I do that, I'll just tell you to date the things that have already happened as part of this. So as I mentioned, CDAB has been engaged. There's been a number of standing committees that the city is a part of that have been notified and asked for feedback throughout this process. Some of them meet monthly, some of them meet quarterly. Emails have been sent out to all stakeholders on the appendix to the plan, asking them to check our website, to follow this issue, specifically telling them that we are available to come to their meetings and do presentations and gather input during their regularly scheduled meetings as well. We've had one take us up on that already. The Homeless Voices folks asked us to come and give a presentation and get some feedback, and we hope to do that for a number of other groups as well. There's a survey particular to the assessment of fair housing that's posted now and will continue to be posted through the end of this month. And there's a community solutions work group that will be hosted by Mayor Kelly as well as council members Hamill and Barker. That's going to start up later this month and go through the fall. And then, as I mentioned, the needs assessment and market analysis, or the data crunching side, is going on as well. So the tactics I wanted to highlight particularly to you are the survey that was launched. Now we've got just about 500 responses already. The demographics of those who have responded really mirror the city as a whole in general as far as race, ethnicity, income, and that sort of thing. They're owners, renters, some people who are homeless have completed the survey as well. Most say they have trouble affording their housing, so 67% of those so far who have responded. So we're really using this survey. It's not going to be a real statistically valid survey. It's something that anyone can fill out, but we want to use it to ground truth all of the data that we're getting from the census and other sources, and give people an opportunity to just voice their own comments and concerns through at least one open-ended question. There's also an opportunity for folks to talk about discrimination they've experienced, and I think you've already heard a lot about the source of income piece. We're certainly hearing that on the survey as well. A lot of comments about that, comments about rents rising. Sounds like about 18% so far have talked about discrimination they've experienced, but only a small portion of that is discrimination based on the federally protected classes like disability and things like that. The other discrimination is perceived discrimination for things like source of income, family size, that kind of thing. And then just a few of the open-ended responses, the themes that we're hearing a lot of: rents are rising too much, too fast, housing costs are too high, this affects everyone, property owners and property management companies won't take Section 8 vouchers, tenants and landlords and property owners all need more education, and the city should allow ADUs. Those are kind of the bigger themes that we've heard from those open-ended questions. So any questions about the survey particularly?
Committee members? Councilmember Barker?
Just some suggestions. So I don't know if you already have, but the clients of Bellingham Housing Authority and Opportunity Council, especially at our housing town hall, Greg had suggested if you ever need feedback from people that we service, that this would be an easy way to let us know, and then we'll send it out to our clients and see if they can't give you more feedback. So if you haven't already, that's an opportunity. But then I'm kind of looking outside the box, but in the library we have a lot of users on the computers there, and if there was a way that automatically every time we have a survey or something, if they wanted to, they could click it, close it, and move on. But it would be an opportunity to get to people that we might not normally hear from as well when we're doing surveys even beyond this. So
Thank you. Yeah, we've created postcards that were available at the town hall meeting, just kind of little quarter-sized pieces of paper with information about the survey and the update process, and delivered, I think, about 1,500 of those around to the community. And we've had some great community partners say they'll walk through this with their clients, the folks who have computers available for people to use and things like that. But thank you for the suggestions. The other tactic I want to highlight is the Community Solutions Workgroup that's going to be coming up here starting on July 27th. And that'll meet periodically into the fall. And that's hosted by Mayor Kelly as well as the council members I mentioned. The purpose is really to convene selected stakeholders. There's about a dozen people total with city staff to make recommendations about prioritizing housing strategies to be adopted as part of this plan. And then, of course, any future housing levy will use the input gathered from that. The new group will review the preliminary data that is coming out right now and analysis to look at some of those gaps and to help staff really hone in on the data that folks feel is important to be looking at in detail through this process, and then help prioritize. We all know there's not enough resources to meet all the needs in the community, so we want to have a robust dialogue about how to prioritize those needs. And their recommendations will be completed in early November. So that's all I had for you, walking through that plan. I think we're scheduled to come back to you about every other month through this process and continue to give updates. Happy to take any questions.
Committee members? Councilmember Murphy?
I just want to say, when we go through regular things like this, I really appreciate that we're trying to get better community involvement, because a lot of times we focus our attention on it for a duration of time, but yet people still don't feel engaged with it. So this is such a sensitive issue to our community, so I'm really glad we're trying to get ahead of getting involvement, getting that feedback in, so thank you.
Yeah, I think that my comments will probably be as you come back more. I've always wondered if we would, especially through the consolidated plan, if we'd really focus on a particular group, whatever that be, versus kind of putting our funds across a lot of different groups. And I think as we get more information, we can see, is there one group rising a little bit more to the top that we could maybe hone in and focus on. I'm not sure. It's been kind of early. I know I've heard that there might be support for that in other places, or we could at least have that conversation so that we could see if we could really make some significant impact with a particular group of people or groups of people. But I'm assuming we're looking at that as we move forward?
Yes, that'll be certainly on the agenda of the Community Solutions Work Group, and we're hoping that that group will really tackle that subject in a very detailed and robust way, and then bring those recommendations back.
And if you do any other larger public outreach, it's a time, maybe you have a specific time where people are coming, if you could let us know too. Sometimes I just like to sit in the room like at the parks and just hear myself what people are saying. I appreciate a heads up. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. Thank you for that presentation. And for anybody listening out there, if you do want to get online, the URL is cob.org/CPU update, and you can please give us your feedback. This is going to be great information for us going forward in our planning. And that is end of committee.